Well, the St. Louis Cardinals are dealing with a variety of injuries this offseason. Ones we knew with Ivan Herrera and Mason Wynn and their surgeries that have been scheduled, and some surprise ones with Brendan Donovan hernia, and then Lars Nootbaar having some heel surgery on both of those, and some complicated matters with both of them, and concern especially on the Nootbaar front, and then also how the Cardinals handled the Brendan Donovan side of things during the season is kind of concerning, and how this impacts this greater conversation of the Cardinals' future, extensions, trades, value. All these things seem to be a little bit in flux right now based on compared to where we thought it would be earlier. Sandy and I are going to discuss all that and more on this episode of Dealing the Cards. Welcome back into Dealing the Cards. We placed Andrew on the IL today. He should be back quicker than Newt and Donovan, so hopefully we'll see. But honestly, I mean, we should go through Andrew's injury report. It might be as long as Nootbaar's at this point, the amount of times we put him on the IL. But no, we could all say that. But we're the Dealing the Cards podcast. We go live twice a week over here on the channel. We also have the Birds on the Farm with Sandy and Kareem, which do some awesome prospect coverage. You guys should definitely go check out the Danielle Ortiz interview that you guys did recently. It was great. Yeah. Super awesome interview and just cool to get to know one of the rising Cardinals prospects. We got some more stuff we are excited to share with you soon about the charity live stream we do every year. And we got some cool stuff lined up with that. So excited to share that soon. And obviously the offseason starts here soon after the World Series, which will be the Blue Jays and the Dodgers. And so we'll get to talk more offseason stuff here soon. So we're almost through the dead period. But the Cardinals gave us some stuff to talk about, and it's not necessarily good stuff. So they announced the other day, we knew the Ivan Herrera surgery was happening, so that was not a surprise. Sounds like it went well. They should have his offseason program in place even around the injury, so he should be able to work on his defensive stuff regardless of the elbow surgery. Mason Wynn, we already knew he had his surgery earlier in the year. They claimed that it wasn't going to get worse for him playing through it, but I am concerned a little bit about why'd you delay the timeline. But then we had the Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar news that came as a surprise. And let's start on the Nootbaar side of things first, because I think that's the one that seems to be most confusing and out of left field of them all. Yeah. So, again, the surgery he had was related to the name of it again. It is, oh my gosh, why can't I pull up the heel thing? Haglund or something like that, right? Haglund's deformity. Yeah. So bone growth on the back of the heel that develops and causes discomfort over time, risking damage to the Achilles tendon. So he had surgery to shave that on both heels. Jeff Jones of the Belleville News Democrat, friend of the podcast, shared some information about how, like, Yoenis Cespedes a few years ago dealt with the surgery and basically missed 2 years, and their initial timeline was 8 to 10 months. John Wall, the NBA, had an injury that Sandy Rob Troy Tulowitzki had to deal with that in a significant
that was
time.
Rough too. Yeah.
Now, Bernie Miklasz, another friend of ours, did some research of his own and checked in. Apparently, some runners have this surgery a decent amount. In recent years, there's been some developments in that area, and a speedier recovery has been happening. And so the Cardinals haven't said anything to the effect that they expect him to miss time next year, but they've been pretty hush about it all other than the surgery being announced itself. So there's some doomsday timelines we've heard of. We've maybe heard of some timelines where it's not going to be a big deal. He'll be ready for spring training. Who knows? But regardless, Sandy, it's another Lars Nootbaar injury. And he was a prime trade candidate this offseason, even though he's coming off a down year. But now you have Lars Nootbaar coming off a career worst year who is now having a weird surgery in the offseason. What are your thoughts, man? Because this is man, like this situation just continues to get more and more complicated.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, and it's so funny that it comes on the heels of the season in which he played the most games in his career, right?
Yeah.
It felt like Lars Nootbaar was really available this year. What did he get in, like 135 games or something like that?
Might be like 130. Yeah, I think he's in the 130s. Because I remember I got part of my prediction right. I predicted he was going to be a 4-war player and play 130 games. He played 130 games, but was not good.
Yeah, it's a little funnier that when he actually was so available, he was not his best self. But yeah, I mean,
almost 600 plate appearances.
Yeah, and it's just disappointing to have something like this happen again. You know, even when you do get him finally available for most of a full season, there were ups and downs, of course, but obviously there had to be something, and here we are. You know, the Lars Nootbaar is injury prone camp. You win. You know, this is a tough one too. You mentioned the players that Jeff Jones had cited. Yeah, like when this came up, my immediate thought was Troy Tulowitzki. I don't know if he underwent the exact same process, but I do know, or the exact same surgery, but I do know He did have bone spurs on his heels. He had surgery to remove them. Maybe it's different than what they do now. Maybe the removal process looked different than the shaving down process. I don't know exactly how that worked. But if people remember following that situation after Tulo ended up in Toronto, I believe it was like an 8-week recovery timetable, and he didn't play the whole season. And then he ended up missing a ton of time the next year, and essentially it ended his career. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Lars Nootbaar. You're not saying that, but it's crazy. It's crazy to think about. And as Jeff Jones said, like, the precedent is not good among baseball players. I'm sure there have been advancements. I'm sure Bernie's on to something. That's good to know. But yeah, it's definitely worrisome, and especially so frustrating because you finally get to the end of this and it's like, Lars is not O'Neill. He is available. Actually, he's not available again. And we have no idea how it's going to impact him next season.
Yeah, it is really frustrating. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, at this point, at least going into this year, a lot of and this is another weird injury, but at this point, you can't just keep having all these weird injuries and say, well, it's a weird injury, so it's not injury prone. Like, at this point, he struggles with staying healthy. It's a problem. He finally stayed on the field, and now he has to prove, okay, can he stay on the field and produce? Like, is the longer he stays on the field, does he wear down physically? Where he's like, yeah, he doesn't have an injury, but he's also like not the same guy. We're gonna talk about, especially the Brendan Donovan side of it, how Ollie and the Cardinals front office handled it. But I do think Nootbaar's another case where I'm like, man, like, they went from every year they couldn't get him on the field, where they were playing the lineup every single day, batting lineup, and I'm like, okay, can you get this guy a day off here and there? Like, does he need to be playing every single day when you struggle to keep this guy on the field? Like, is that really the best thing for his body and for his health? And I don't know if this helped lead to this injury. I don't know what happened with that, but there's parts of it this year where he's going through these struggles and they pulled the plug way late on it, where I'm like, is this really the best way to be handling a guy that struggles to stay on the field? And there are very few guys in baseball these days who play 162 games. Like, it's like I'm getting 130 games out of guys a full season to me. Like, I love
it's
that.
almost always like first baseman now too. Like, it's pretty rare to see an outfielder get into the 150s these days.
And especially if it keeps the guy fresh and producing. Like, I would much rather do that than have a guy grind through something and be a detriment to your lineup. And so I know there are times in the year where they were pretty thin with injuries and stuff, but like, early in the year when they were playing Nootbaar every single day, they weren't. And so to me, it didn't really make sense they did that. I digress, but that's just the situation they found themselves in. I've seen some stuff which I just think is absolutely wild, that the Cardinals should consider non-tendering Lars Nootbaar. That to me makes zero sense. That's
what's he even owed next year?
So his projection in arbitration is in like the $6 million range, and so
that's not even crazy.
It's not crazy, like, but people are like, oh, the Cardinals are going to shave money. Okay, well, that's also why they're getting rid of Sonny Gray, Nolan Arenado. They're letting Miles Michaelis lock. That, like, they don't need to bring it down to $50 million. But second of all, too, Lars Nootbaar is worth $6 million, even in a year where he was last year. Where like I love this stat from Fangraphs. They take dollars to war, and it's a lot of organizations try to look at this kind of when they're trying to value contracts. Like, Lars last year, in a year we played terrible, was worth about $6.5 million. Year before that, he's worth $13 million. His 2 good years in 2022 and 2023, he played a lot of games. He's worth over $20 million. Oh, you want to non-tender him now? Like, no, give me a break. That's a terrible idea. That is a terrible idea.
He has club control beyond next year too. So even if Lars Nootbaar was going to miss the whole season, I still don't think I'd non-tender him. I think at that point, I'd still be saying it's worth keeping this club control. There's still trade value here. And you want to get him back. Also, if he doesn't play a lot, he's not going to make more money in arbitration the following year too.
Yeah, and so like, I'm totally okay with the idea. That. Yeah, like, people who wanted him traded, I get that, and I'm not against that. But non-tendering him and just letting him go to free agency is crazy to me. I do not understand.
He'd sign a multi-year deal immediately, and he probably would make more than $6 million.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, I've heard, anyways, that to me, don't even entertain it. It does not make any sense. If they did that, I would rip them to shreds. It makes no sense to do. And the risk reward is not there. I'm like, you're talking about a $6 million player here, where it's like, okay, if he doesn't play well, you're maybe overpaying him by a couple $1 million, or if he's unhealthy, or like you're overpaid by a couple $1 million. Lars Nootbaar, we know when he is just where his normal self, which he's done in 2 to 3 years, where he plays 110, 120 games, high level, but doesn't play a lot of games, that player is worth significantly more than $6 million. I'm not, there's very little to gain financially for that. And also too, like, don't we talk all the time where people are like, why are we trying to line the DeWitt's pockets? Like, no, it does not make sense to save $6 million here when there's a potential reward of whether you're getting things on the field from him or the
Yeah,
potential trade asset that he could be. So yeah, non-tendering makes 0 sense. But it does complicate his trade value, Sandy, I think, where it's like, what do you do with him this
absolutely.
offseason? Like, we talk about the Cardinals parting ways with outfielders all the time and selling low on them, and they go off to pop off somewhere else. And it's like, okay, this feels like selling low again. And so, do you like, I mean, at this point, like, what's the line for you between trading Lars Nootbaar this offseason and just holding on to running it back again?
I mean, I don't think I'm trading him anymore. I think teams are going to point to Yoenis Cespedes. They're going to point to Troy Tulowitzki, and they're going to say, "Look, we have no idea how this recovery timetable goes." And I think when you're talking about a player, or when you're talking about an organization where the Cardinals are, where they clearly want to offload pieces, and you're talking about a player like Lars Nootbaar, who's injury prone and dealing with something potentially very serious right now, the Cardinals have no leverage in that kind of discussion. Another team doesn't need Lars Nootbaar nearly as bad as the Cardinals need to move on from Lars Nootbaar if they're coming to them. And I'm not saying the Cardinals like have to trade him. But you know what I'm saying? The Cardinals have
Yeah.
no leverage. It's not like other teams are loading up. It's not like you're at the deadline and there's 3 days to make a deal and somebody desperately needs a plug and play in their
Yeah.
outfield, right?
Yeah.
Like someone acquiring Lars Nootbaar is probably building in the fact that this guy might not be ready on the first day of spring training, you know?
Yeah.
And so they don't need that at the moment. He's great depth for another organization. I just can't see the price being, one, how the Cardinals evaluate Lars Nootbaar, and two, how Cardinals fans evaluate Lars Nootbaar, right? Everyone tends to be higher on their own players, but when you've got these kind of question marks around a guy, another organization is going to look at him and say, "Yeah, I'm not paying you for that guy." You know, I know there's been this pipe dream in the past that, oh, the Cardinals could trade so and so for a number 2 starter. Like, you're not getting a number 5 starter with control right now for Lars Nootbaar. I don't know what you get for him.
Maybe, but not
I
like
don't
most
know.
significant control.
Yeah,
But
not an interesting number 5 though.
yeah.
You could get like an equivalent of like Michael McGreevy with like 2 years maybe. Even that, I don't know. I don't know what organizations are moving for a guy like Lars Nootbaar. You're probably looking at prospects, and they're probably not all that interesting right now. So I think I probably would hold him. Maybe if you get like blown away, but I can't see that happening now. I can't see another team being like super excited about this now. Whereas before, I think it made sense that you might have a team be kind of, I don't know, hyped up about what Lars has done in the past and still thinking like maybe they're the ones that can get it right as far as his health goes, something like that. And especially a team that's got more depth. Like we talk about the Dodgers all the time. The Dodgers make a ton of sense for Lars Nootbaar, right? Like I think you were talking about it earlier. The Cardinals had a problem playing Lars Nootbaar every day, but when you look at the other options, right, it was like if Nootbaar's not in the lineup, is Barrero in the lineup? Is Siani in the lineup again? You know, even late in the year, it turned into okay, I guess Church is going to play every day now. Cardinals were incredibly thin all
Yeah.
season. The roster was just in at every spot, not just the outfield. But a team like the Dodgers, where there's talent up and down, it's like, okay, we can give Lars a day off, and Tommy Edman can play out there. Teoscar Hernandez can play left field. You know, we can do all these other things, and he only has to play 110 games. He can be his best self for us. So I think before this stuff, something like that might have made sense, and some team might have been really excited about the potential of adding like a plug and play 3-win guy who also is only going to soak up like 500 at bats. Whereas now, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and again, so like I also look at the situation too, and assuming Nato's on the way out and Ivan Herrera is going to catch this year, it gets a little bit easier to fit in the plate appearances again. Where Nolan Gorman didn't do enough this year to like get penciled into a spot, and so
Yeah.
if you're talking about like what's the asset management here, we can get to the Brendan Donovan side of it in a minute because I get the side of it from people that you're selling high, and so that's a different conversation to me. Even though I still want to do it, we can talk more about it. But like when it comes to Lars Nootbaar, I'm like, it feels like it's a low reward, high risk dealing him
Oh
at this
yeah.
point. And so is that the situation the Cardinals want to find themselves in? Because like Ivan's catching, Wilson's at first, JJ's at second, Donnie's at third, Wynn's at short, Burley, Scott, and Walker in your outfield. And you've still got the DH spot open. So like Newt could DH. I mean, obviously Newt would probably play the field. So Burley
Dude, and that's
DHs
if
or something like
Walker's
that.
actually on the big league club playing every day, which
Yeah,
I hope is not the case.
Well, I'm not. I would say I'm not necessarily in the camp that I hope he's not there. I just hope they're not like penning it in.
It's
Because
got to
if he
be
has a good
AAA.
if he has a good off season and a good camp, I don't see why it's a problem with him in the major
I
leagues.
feel like we've seen him have like 2 good spring trainings now though, and it is yet to translate
Well,
to anything.
to them, it's like when we're evaluating spring training, we're like, what's the spring training
Sure.
numbers look like? I'm saying like,
Yeah,
which
100%.
they
No, I
should have
get it.
known this wasn't like they knew behind the hood there was stuff he needed to figure out. So
Yeah.
if their development staff is like, hey, he's ready, I'm fine with him being major leagues because you can always option him to Memphis a month later if you need to.
Yeah.
But right now I'd predict he's gonna be a Memphis Redbird, but I could totally see him being the everyday lineup. But
That's
yeah,
fair.
to your point, if like Walker is in AAA, then right field's wide open right now. Church is not a guy you pencil in. So JC's not a guy you pencil in, and Gorm is not a guy you pencil in. So Nootbaar has been far more productive than all three of those guys. Is far more valuable than all three of those guys, even with his injury right now. I would hold on to that guy and let him figure out things in spring training at this point. Unless, again, if teams come out there and still do value Nootbaar, because again, I do think you're right. I think when Chaim Bloom calls up the Seattle Mariners and is like, you interested in Lars Nootbaar? They're gonna be like, how are those heels, bro? But I don't think they're like hanging up the phone being like, he's Troy Tulowitzki. I still think they're like, man, if we can get Lars Nootbaar for nothing.
Oh,
like,
yeah, 100%.
So I think teams still
depth.
want him. Yeah, but I don't think they're going to give you what you think you should get and what I think the Cardinals would hope they could get going into the offseason, or especially looking into the season, being like, oh man, if Lars has a good year, we'll see what happens. So I think you hold on to him at this point, barring a good offer. But then it does make the trades this offseason really interesting because it's like, well, you're talking about moving Willson Contreras, or not Willson Contreras, potentially Willson Contreras. Talking about moving Arenado, who's not going to get you anything. You're talking about Sonny Gray, probably not going to get you much either. Unless they trade Brendan Donovan, I don't really know if you're bringing in a lot of talent to this organization this offseason through trades. This isn't the rebuild offseason where you're flipping things for future value. I think it's kind of like last offseason where you're kind of like, all right, we're running it back again. But this time, JJ Weatherholt's in the mix, and hopefully we get some young pitching to debut this year. But it's not a lot of like, hey, we're flipping guys for future value. We're hoping the guys we have develop. So I do think that contributes to the Brendan Donovan conversation to me. And so I want to get into that after we thank some of our sponsors, but I still think it's not as cut and dry as some people want to make it out to be. But again, as always, we want to thank 314 Sports Cards and Collectibles for their support of the podcast. They've been an awesome partner with us for a long time. They're located at 9640 All Boulevard and All Vet, open 10 to 5 Monday through Fridays and 10 to 4 on Saturdays and Sundays. They buy, sell, and trade all sports cards and Pokemon cards. They have the newest selections of packs, boxes, and single cards of local players and stars from around the league. Make sure you check out 314. If you shop there, let them know we sent you. If you've been there before, we'd love to see what you got going, what you pull from them or buy from them from their case. They're awesome to work with. We love Devin and their team, so please check out 314. And we also want to tell you about our other sponsor, and that's Underdog Sports.
The Deal on the Cards podcast is proud to be partnered with Underdog Sports, our favorite place to play fantasy games. You're now eligible to play in Illinois, Missouri, Indiana, and 37 other U.S. states. You got to check out Pick'em. It's so easy to play. You just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can win 20 times your money by going 5 for 5. If that sounds like fun, sign up with our promo code CARDS to claim your first free pick plus first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. We can't wait to see your entries.
All right, so Brendan Donovan. I'm still team don't trade Brendan Donovan. Because here's the thing. I've said it before, but Sandy, I want to hear if your opinion's changed. First of all, now he's got sports hernia. And actually, let's get into the trade stuff after. Let's talk about how they handled the situation, because that's the thing that really frustrates me. Sandy, I'm going to pull it up now. Before Brendan Donovan's injury on, I think it was like July 11th. How do you think he was performing on the year?
He was outstanding before the injury. I want to say he was running an OPS up near 800. He made an all-star team based largely on that performance. I mean, he was wonderful. He certainly would have been a Silver Slugger finalist, not at utility, but at second base with those numbers. I think he ended up finishing the year as probably like the 5th or 6th best hitting second baseman in the National League. But I think before that, he was the clear number 2 behind Ketel Marte.
Well, he finished the year really strong. So he ended up I was doing this the other day, he was actually like just behind Bryce Terrain and Ketel Marte in the National League. He was a top 3 offensive.
Warner had a high average though.
Yeah, but like WRC plus wise, he was like 8 points higher than Horner, maybe even 10, I think. And like across the board was just better. I think he had better bat average. Yeah, he was top 3 in batting average, slug, OBP, like across the board. He's top 3 in every category. But before his toe injury on June 10th, he played 64 games. Donovan slashed 310, 379, 440 for an 819 OPS, a 132 WRC plus, 20 doubles, and 4 home runs in 64 games. From the 46 games that he played with the toe injury before he hit the IL with a groin injury, which was caused by the toe injury, he slashed 234, 305, 349, a 653 OPS, 84 WRC plus, and had just 10 extra base hits in the 46 games after having 24 before that. It was brutal. And I get the part of it was Donovan wanted to play, but, and again, friend of the podcast, love Brendan Donovan, love watching him play. But what they could have done when he had this toe injury is shut him down for maybe, like, it might have taken just like a week or two, and they get him back on the field and he produces through the summer. And you're talking about that.
They asked Mo about that. I remember I was listening to the press conference, and well, it was Ollie, and then Mo commented on it later. But it was basically like, we hate the options behind Brendan Donovan so much that we would rather have this version of Brendan Donovan play. And it speaks to exactly what we said about Nootbaar. The depth is just such an issue. But sorry for interrupting there.
No. I mean, it's a great point, because it's like, I understand they didn't like their options, but Donovan produced like one of those options, if not worse, during that stretch. And
it was so bad. And
I get that, like, Donovan plays a role in that. He wants to play, and I get that, and I love that about him. But like, also, you got to protect players from themselves sometimes. And again, a sports hernia is an injury that can often be caused by a guy compensating for other injuries, which is something that his groin injury was, where he talked about, I'm pretty sure this groin injury is because I was kind of compensating for the toe thing, and then my groin started to hurt, and now I'm on the IL for the groin injury, but it's really the toe injury that helped cause that. And then he comes back, he was a little bit slow to start, and then he's awesome at the end of the year. It's like, you know what? Maybe having him miss 12 games or so in the summer so I can get awesome Brendan Donovan the rest of the year made more sense than making him play
maybe
the whole summer.
Maybe you win a couple extra games and you're in it on the last weekend.
I mean, you honestly could have. And so that's
National League race was so frustrating this year.
It's just the way the Cardinals handled some of this stuff this year was just mind-boggling, because it's like you try to stay in the race, but then you also like hurt yourself in some way staying in the race. And I mean, they made the right decision selling at the deadline. Even if they're in it, you sell. That's what you should have
sold more.
Yeah. So
I talk about that another time.
Yeah. But so just how they handled it is poor, and I think they need to figure out how to do that better going forward, because it is a terrible situation. And then, but the Brendan Donovan side of it, I mean, Kareem's in the chat, trade everyone away. No, like I don't. If they trade Brendan Donovan, I see the vision behind it. I still think there is value in having a guy around to help build up this young core. And I think, again, I know he struggled with injuries, and that a little bit, it gives me a little bit of pause long term. It does. But you're talking about a guy who I think his bat's going to play long term. Like, he's a guy that's going to be a pretty good defender long term. I don't think this is a 5-year project. I could be up to that if things take time, but I think this team could be back in it in 2 to 3 years. And maybe peak Donovan is next year and the year after. And so maybe you're not getting peak Donovan at the, here we go, Andrew, you can do the little tease, but so maybe like you're not getting peak Donovan when you're back to contention, but I still think you're getting a good Donovan. And also, I'm talking about, who do we think? Like, you're talking about JJ Weatherholt coming up, Joshua Baez, Reinald Rodriguez, Jordan Walker, Mason Wynn. I want Brendan Donovan pouring into those guys and teaching those guys what winning habits and winning mentality looks like going forward, and having him just contribute to this rather than punting him for mediocrity. Because what you're hoping for from Brendan Donovan is Brendan Donovan. Like if you got a prospect who turns into Brendan Donovan, obviously it fits your timeline more, but it's like, yes, we got that player. I just don't see. I also I doubt that the return they would get for Brendan Donovan is like all that great. I mean, I think people see the injury stuff too. I think he's a valuable piece, but to me, he's more valuable to you than in a trade. Does the fact that you can't trade, or not, you can't trade, but this fact that Nootbaar's value is low right now and you don't really have another tradable asset make you think Donovan is a guy they should be? I mean, you should shop him. I get that. But to me, I don't think you end up getting an offer that makes sense to trade Brendan Donovan for. Do you disagree with that?
No, I think you're right. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to get that. And also, you make a great
I'm
point.
worried it
Like, yeah,
will
you're
happen
gonna.
though. I disagree with you on that. I think it
Oh,
might
no, no,
happen.
no,
I
no.
think it
I'm
will
saying
happen.
it won't happen that they get an offer that we like. I think if the Cardinals do trade Brendan Donovan, there's like a 95% chance that I read through the details of that trade and I say, "Oh man," like I don't think I'm going to be over the moon. You know, I don't think that there's a world in which I read whatever they got back for Donovan and I think, "Wow, that's awesome." You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're absolutely right. It's not something I'm excited about. I really hope they don't trade him.
Because
But
I
you
also
made a
think
great point
oh,
too
go ahead.
about having a guy there. You know, like
Exactly.
if these great prospects are going to come up, number one, the argument people have been on this for whatever reason for a long time. It's like, oh, JJ plays second, so we can't have Donovan. One, Donovan plays like every position basically fine, so he can move anywhere that you needed him to. Two, JJ Weatherholt is more than capable of playing third base. And I mean, I wish they would have given JJ some reps in
Or
the outfield,
Donovan
but
can play
that's
third
another story. Exactly. You
or
can move either
outfield.
of them around. And like, just because there's some crossover, it doesn't mean you can't have both these guys on the field. Also, if I had to choose between like them and Gorman, it's both of them a million times. But back to what I was going to say, you need to have a guy when this young talent comes up. Think about when the Cubs brought up, it was like Addison Russell, Baez, Chris Bryant, all at the same time, Ian
Yep.
Happ, Wilson Contreras, and Anthony Rizzo was like the team leader, and he had been there already, and he had done
Yep.
that, and he was a
Yep.
big league veteran who they all have talked about it ad nauseum about how important that was to their career to have a guy like that, and then they all took off together.
Yep.
That's something that you have to have. Think about the Orioles, this failed rebuild now, where you're talking about a team that brought up all these super prospects, and it's been like fine. Some of them have banged, some of them have busted. But it really never felt like that team got going. They never had
Yep.
like a true team identity. It never got going. And now you're talking about they might be ripping it down to the studs again soon. You know,
Yeah.
they didn't have that like guy though. They didn't have a leader like that for the club. So
Yeah.
I'd hate to see the Cardinals move on from theirs.
Yeah, and because I hear people saying, I completely agree. Brendan Donovan can't be your best player on the World Series team. Like the version of Brendan
Well,
Donovan
yeah,
we've seen so far is not good enough to do that. I completely agree. It doesn't mean you have to trade him. He could be your fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh best player on that
yeah.
team one day. And
He's also
I just
not the
can't.
best player on this team. Like, why are we pretending that Ivan Herrera doesn't exist or
Yeah,
Wilson Contreras even?
Yeah, I would take Brendan Donovan over Wilson Contreras because the positional value too side of it.
Sure, but as a hitter, Wilson Contreras has been a much better hitter.
Yeah, consistently at least. But then I also think people underrate how good Brendan Donovan is because he's not a star. I agree. He's not like a superstar,
Sure,
star face of the team, but
he's a
he's also
local star
not.
though.
But saying he's a complimentary player, I think undermines things quite a bit as well, and it doesn't speak to his ability as a player. I'll pull up some stuff earlier about or more about that too because I think like when I dug into it, he's like a top like a position player wise, like arguably a top 50 position player in baseball, in my opinion, and the kind of production he's put over the years, and that's why I think he's a good bridge for this core going forward.
He's also never
Again,
been
so
bad before.
exactly, and he's a guy who's dependable. I think the behind the scenes stuff is really important as well. Let's see. Sorry, I had it pulled up, but yeah, it's like this year, even with the injuries and such, he still ended up finishing top 60 or top 55 in WRC plus on the year. He's a 2.8 win player. Since he debuted in 2022, he's 58th in WRC plus among 304 hitters. He's a 282, 361, 411 player, 120 WRC plus. Since he debuted, he plays all these different positions. You're talking about a guy who's 20% above league average to the plate, plays 4 to 5 different positions that you can put him to. You've got money to spend right now. Again, you're not going to go out and spend it like free agency spend, but you've got wiggle room that I think you could smartly give him money now and give him that contract now so that you're not paying him market value in 3 to 4 years, but you're getting him at $12 million a year or $13 million a year when he's producing far more value than that for you on the field. And again, I think the point that I just don't think people, at least either they disagree with me about if it matters or not, or they're not taking it into account enough. Here also, so Fangraphs value dollars wise, he's been worth 20 million, 12 million, 25 million, 22 million a year in his career so far. To me, the kind of impact that he can have on JJ Weatherholt to help him get to the next level, to a Reinel Rodriguez, to a Joshua Baez, to that, look, whoever the young core is going to be, if all those guys he rubs off and helps them get incrementally better, then like it's not just the value he's providing you on the field, but it's the value that he's providing you through these other players. Like you said, like an Anthony Rizzo potentially helped out with it. Yeah, maybe Wilson Contreras could be that guy, but I think they're different temperaments. Like I think Wilson's like a fiery clubhouse guy, but he's not the guy who's gonna like take you under your wing and show you how to really do things per se. Like Donovan's the guy that has put together like champagne bottle thing for the new rookies who come in. He's the guy that is like grown from a quiet leader to, he's not a loud and vocal guy, but he's a guy that everyone in the room respects and listens to. He's a smart, analytically driven guy. So he understands. He's not like just like get out there and crush the baseball. Like he's willing to work with guys and help them figure things out. And I think there's something to be said about a homegrown leader, a homegrown player versus a guy you bring in to do that kind of stuff. And I think you need a mixture of those things. Again, I'm not saying that you couldn't trade Brendan. Like it wouldn't be the worst mistake of all time. Like I'm not saying that. I'm not saying like the Cardinals are complete idiots if they trade Brendan Donovan. I would disagree with it. And I think long-term it'd prove that holding on to him would have been a better idea. Do I see why he could potentially do it? Sure. But to me, when I think of what I think they'll end up getting, which maybe I'm wrong, I don't think it'll end up being as valuable as what he could have provided for you when he was here and for the players around him. And so I would like to see him keep him. But I think they're going to trade him, and that makes me sad.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because I think they look at this and they say, well, it's Brendan Donovan or it's Alec Burleson or it's, like who else is going to bring in talent this offseason? I think even if Wilson Contreras wanted to move on, which I don't think he does, and I think Wilson Contreras is on the team next year, which I love Wilson Contreras so much. But I think even if he wanted to move on, the value that's attached to him is it's mitigated by that contract, right? And so it's Brendan Donovan or it's Alec Burleson or it's Von Herrera, and he's untouchable as far as I'm concerned, and that's about it. They're not trading Mason Wynn, right? They're not trading Von Herrera. Jordan Walker has no value. Lars Nootbaar's hurt. I think Lars was the logical guy to be moved. And now that value is diminished the way it is, you're probably right. It probably is Brendan Donovan. And I think it's a shame. I think you're right. I think it's 100% a shame. And I think I just think when you talk about like moving on from guys, because it's so easy to say like trade Brendan Donovan and get all you can. But like I don't think people have really taken a second to think about what that means.
Thanks, Graham.
I don't think people have taken a second to really understand like what you can get back for Brendan Donovan. And we could put together some mocks for a future episode, or we could kind of talk through what value looks like now. But you're not getting Cam from the Yankees, like it's not the guy that's coming back. I just think that there's a 95, probably like a 99% chance that if they trade Brendan Donovan and that tweet comes through, you'll look at it and you'll say, really? That's it?
Yeah. Well, also too, like, okay, so if Von Herrera is a middle of the order bat, and if Alec Burleson, he's not like a superstar middle of the order bat, but he could be a really good number 5 hitter for you or number 2.
Outstanding. I mean, like Contreras is still a viable cleanup hitter too. He's way better than people admit.
Yeah, so like you've got 3 bats right there, like legit bats, and then Brendan Donovan, I think, is a legit bat. Again, he's not like superstar bat, but you're talking about as your leadoff hitter when you're getting 20% above league average production. I love that. And then you're
even
also
like
about,
in the 6 hole, Brendan Donovan would be so nice to lengthen out a lineup. He could be the world's best 6 hole hitter if he went to like LA or New York, because that's what he'd do for them, and he'd lengthen that lineup. Like it'd be wonderful.
And you talk about, so like, again, some of this is like you're projecting, right? Because it's like, is JJ going to be that good? We'll see. But you got JJ batting leadoff, and you've got Yvonne batting second, and you've got Burleson batting third, and you've got Wilson batting fourth, and you're kind of missing a 5-hole hitter still. So I think that's like a fair thing. Maybe that's Walker this year. Who knows? Maybe someone develops. But then you've got Donnie, who maybe is the 5-hole hitter for now. I'm talking so like this year, it's like you have the makings of a lineup starting, where it's like you got some really intriguing bats in there. And then who knows? Maybe Reinel's a part of that mix. Maybe it's Joshua Baez. Maybe it's some guy they draft this year. Maybe it's I don't know who pops off. And then you still have money to spend in free agency. Maybe it's Jordan Walker. Like maybe he figures it out. Nolan Gorman. I don't know. But like I think you're not that far away where like Brendan Donovan has to be traded, in my opinion.
This all leads to my sign Kyle Tucker.
It's not happening.
They would never do it. They would never do it. But if the Cardinals, if they actually like moved on from Nolan Arenado and got rid of over half the money, if they actually got rid of like 3/4 of the Sonny Gray money No more Miles Michaelis, no more Steven Matz, or Ryan Helsley. They don't do anything else except maybe like a cheap reliever. You could afford it, and your payroll would still decrease. And then you'd have him in the 2 spot, and then Ivan Herrera, and then Wilson Contreras, and then Alec Burleson, and then Brendan Donovan could bat leadoff, or he could bat 6.
And then your opening day
would
rotation
actually,
or your opening day starter is
horrendous.
Michael McGreevy.
But you actually could have like an elite offense. But that's the thing. You are actually so close. You're so right. They are close to having a good lineup. And I know it was terrible to watch for most of the second half of last year, but this goes back to Lars Nootbaar not figuring it out. It goes back to Mason Wynn and Brendan Donovan being banged up, right? It goes back to Ivan Herrera missing 2 significant chunks of the season. That's what it all goes back to. And so, yeah, like you can't presume health, of course. And even if you had that elite, like 1 through 7, there would be injuries eventually, I'm sure. But they are close to having a real offense. It's not like this offense is as bad as the numbers say it was.
Yeah, you're close to having a real offense, and obviously Tucker, which won't happen, would accelerate that.
It would never happen. It'd be so amazing.
But then to me, you're still so far off pitching wise that like I just don't see the point of something like that. So like, Mark Feinstein, I think it's more of the fact that he works for MLB.com and so kind of has to say some stuff. But Mark Feinstein's more reliable than like a lot of the MLB.com guys can be sometimes. But he put the Cardinals as a fit for Framber Valdez and Gleyber Torres, which I was like, interesting. I don't see
Torres makes no sense. Valdez makes some sense, but they wouldn't.
Maybe it's because of the right-handed bat thing, but even then, like I think that's in a world you assume you're trading Donovan too. But I don't see either of those.
Trading Donovan to spend a bunch of money though on an overpriced 29-year-old Torres, I would really be upset.
I mean, it depends on if you hit on the prospects, because if you trade Donovan, get prospects that are helpful for you in the future, and then you replace him with Torres, it's not like then you're getting approximating his value plus extra stuff on top of him.
Yeah, but how much is like Torres is going to be expensive. The position player market outside of Kyle Tucker and like I think Bregman's going to opt out, but I don't know. Like he's kind of old. Outside of Tucker, there really aren't a lot of like 30 and under bats that I love, and so I think Torres is going to be inflated. Which
is why I'm like I can't say for certain the Cardinals won't get what people think they could get for Donovan. But potentially is what makes him an attractive trade candidate is like you look at free agency and you look at the trade market and there aren't a lot of options out there. And so Brendan Donovan does start to move up your list. And the fact that he can plug in so many different places, it's like so many teams be interested in him because you could play him at first base, you can play him in second place, you can play him at third base, you can sub him in a shortstop every once in a while, play the corner outfield for you. You get these bat is good enough to DH. Again, he wouldn't be a top end DH, but you could fill in as a DH that day and you're not like, oh, why is Brendan Donovan DHing? Like so does become attractive in that way, but I don't think the Cardinals are that far off. I think he's more valuable to them than somewhere else. I think having him around for the young core is helpful. You got a young core coming up. It's not sexy to not go. Like I get when it's rebuild, it's like go get other people's prospects, and I hope they can find that out other ways. But you can also develop your own guys, hit the international markets, free agency, the trade market.
The farm system's like better than it's been in recent years too. Though.
Yeah,
like,
you're talking about potential top 10 system right now. Yeah. So that's where I would like to keep them, but we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So, hey Sandy, I mean, World Series is about to start. You got any picks? I'm going LA in 6.
Yeah, the Dodgers will win because it felt inevitable before the season, and it was inevitable last year, and it happens. It's unfortunate. Okay, can we talk about something actually?
Okay.
It's so like the Dodgers are ruining baseball narrative. I know it's been like talked about ad nauseum this year. It's really funny to me though that at some point during the NLCS, all of baseball Twitter, I don't know if other people, it certainly felt this way to me on my feed. It felt like all of baseball Twitter suddenly flipped, and it went from like we all hate the Dodgers to like all these other teams are ruining everything, and it's actually their fault for not spending. And I just thought that was a really interesting narrative, and I kind of get it to some extent, but acting like it's the Pirates' fault for not extending Skeens or something like that. It's like, do they really think that was reasonable? Do you know what I'm talking about? This kind of narrative flip.
For sure. Which also just want to say, Kareem, I was with you at one of the Mariners when the World Series so bad. Now I'm rooting for the Jays, but also, gosh, well, it's okay. So here's the thing. Like Andrew putting out Ohtani.
That's insane to say. It's not true.
Well, it's not true, but it is true because he's making the money back. That's true that he's making the money back. And honestly, the Dodgers are probably going to reap decades of revenue from this guy. So like the investment made sense, but He was not coming to St. Louis. I don't care if St. Louis offered him $800 or $900 million. I'm guessing he goes to LA instead. That wasn't happening. So something like that where people are like, any team could have signed Shohei. Yeah,
That's
like
not,
not any team could have signed Shohei.
We know
maybe
not
like
any
3 or 4
signed Shohei because the Blue Jays offered $700 million. The Giants reportedly threw a huge offer out there. The Angels reportedly beat the Dodgers offer.
Yeah, so that's where I'm like, I don't agree with that side of it. But also, I'll see people say like there'll be a tweet that comes out, like you said, where I think, so to your point, I think people are missing the point with the Dodgers ruining baseball, or at least the Dodgers have too much of an advantage, and by saying any team could do it. I'm like, yes, teams could spend more and should spend more, so they're part of the problem, but that doesn't fix the whole problem, because I've seen tweets where it's like, your team could have signed Blake Snell, your team could have signed Freddie Freeman.
It's not true.
And it's like, your team could have signed, well, your team maybe could have signed one of those guys, maybe
not all
2 of those guys, but the Dodgers are the team that can do all of those things and still be like pumping out revenue left and right. Because also part of the risk of that too is like, if the Pirates just randomly went off season, like, we're going to sign Blake Snell, or let's say they signed Carlos Rodon 2 years ago, and then they signed trying to think of another big Javier Baez in the last few years. It's like the Pirates are in big trouble because they've spent so much money on 2 players. That Rodon again was good this year, but was terrible the year before. And Javi Baez has just been awful until this year, where he was kind of really good in the first half and then was bad and then was good for a second.
Yeah, he's been horrendous. I have friends that are Tigers fans. They can't stand him. They're so ready to move on. And so again,
teams need to spend more, but the Dodgers, you look at the payroll, they're paying, I think, 6 different players over $25 million a year.
Yeah, the Cardinals should go out and spend more in free agency. Like, I'm happy to talk about the fact that Wilson Contreras is the biggest free agent deal they've ever signed to a non-returning Cardinal, right? Because I believe Matt Holliday had a bigger deal and was technically a free agent, but so it wasn't an extension, but like he'd already been a Cardinal.
He was a free agent, but it's not.
So,
but like, again, good. Sorry, you keep going. I'll respond to Andrew.
Yeah. So it's like, look, I understand that the Cardinals should probably, like, they should have given out $100 million deal by now to somebody. That probably should have happened. The Pirates should have signed somebody in the last 9 years to a multi-year deal. Ivan Nova's the last guy that they signed to a multi-year deal before the 2016 season. That's a mistake. At the same time, right, the Dodgers have 5 or 6 contracts on the books right now. If you want to talk Ohtani, Freeman, Betts, that's a $365 million extension. Tommy Edman got a ton of money. Teoscar Hernandez got a lot of money. Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, all of these guys. That would be the biggest contract in Cardinals history.
They have a $400 million payroll.
Yeah, that's before luxury tax hits too.
Yeah,
it's so. And another graphic that's gotten a ton of mileage in the last few days is this graph. Have you seen this with like estimated spending of revenue, whatever?
Yep.
And they're like, well, it's everyone else's fault that they only spend about 40% of your revenue. But that to me shows just a lack of understanding of how this works, because operating costs are probably pretty similar for most organizations. Like, yeah, it might be harder in some ways for big, but I think it's about the same. And so when you think about the Dodgers, they can reinvest 70% of their revenue because the 25% left over is huge, because the revenue is so big. And a lot of that revenue comes from a TV contract, which is an inherent advantage. And I will not have people disagree with me on that. That is how it works, right? So for the Marlins, if the Marlins, who brought in like $310 million last year, something like that, if they spend 75% of that on their team, they're left with like what? $75 million for everything else. Like, it doesn't work that way. They can't even spend what the Dodgers spend because like it doesn't scale that way.
Yeah.
It's
so
ridiculous.
again, like Andrew putting here, they could have signed Blake, like Giants signed Blake on a 1-year contract. I get it, but the Cardinals are not going to be able to sign Shohei and Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow and Yamamoto and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez and Michael Conforto and Tanner Scott. He's making $20 million a year in 2 years. Tommy Edman, Kirby Yates, Will Smith, Max Muncy, Clayton Kershaw, Blake Tyron. Like, that's just no team. Most teams can't do that. Now, he brought up the Mets do that. Yeah, they do. And guess what? The Mets could also find themselves in this conversation in a few years if they get everything else in order like the Dodgers have. I'm not one of those guys. We've talked about it before. Payroll is not the end all be all. I'm not like the Cardinals. If they just spent $300 million, it'd be a great team. Would they be better? I think
Almost
probably a
certainly.
little bit.
Also, like,
But
let's
but
not
if
pretend like the Mets didn't have like a hilarious collapse and people didn't dance on their graves after it happened.
But I'm saying,
Like,
like, so, but people would point to, well, the Mets collapsed and they spend money, so money's not the problem. Yeah, money's not the sole part of the problem. The problem is the Dodgers can spend $400 million and have insane player development, scouting, all these. They do everything right. So the fact that they have this extra advantage with the money now puts them over the top, because you can say, well, St. Louis, you just need to get better at player development, all these things. And it's like, yeah, that's true, to get yourself into the conversation. But now, if the Cardinals can do everything on the margins right, then they go up against the Dodgers, who also do everything on the margins right, but also spend $250 million more than you.
more than that, 300 million more.
So that's
Like,
where I think
it's
the
ridiculous.
conversation gets crazy to me, where I'm like, it's just such a disparity there, where we need to encourage. So it's not just we need to not let the Dodgers spend so much money. It's there needs to be a cap on how much you can spend on payroll, because it's gone so out of control. And or more so, which I would be fine if this is the main solution. That, well, actually, no, I think the fact it gets so out of control on the top end is a problem. But you need the bottom teams to be forced to spend more. I think that is part of the problem.
I don't think that's going to change things enough, though.
I know
really
that's
don't.
where I'm thinking it's got to be both. You have to bring the
Yeah.
ceiling down, but you also have to raise the floor up for people.
Because here's the thing: where would they set a floor? I've thought about this. I think a floor right now, realistically, would be somewhere around like 120, 125 tops.
Yeah.
And maybe that's even aggressive. Maybe the floor is like 110. And I think that the floor, because the vast majority of teams spend somewhere between 160 and 200.
Okay.
The floor is not going to change their behavior. All those teams are still going to spend about the same amount of money. Really, all it's going to do is like, oh, the Athletics have to give out another Luis Severino contract, right? Like, they have to go overpay some middling player to get right above the floor. But it's not going to make the Pirates go out and, I don't know, they're not going to be able, like, they're still not going to extend Paul Skeens if that happens. And he's going to be a Dodger in 3 years. And the Dodgers have already said they're interested in pursuing Kyle Tucker this offseason. So get ready to have more fun with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's you
insane.
Also bring down the ceiling too, because then at some point they have to start picking and choosing. So if you bring down the ceiling and you bring up the floor, then I think it balances things better. Where yes, the Pirates will still be at a disadvantage. I mean, that part, I don't know what to do. Like, I would have to sit down and look at the full economics of things and figure out what's fair for everyone. But so, I mean, it's a complicated situation. I just think you got to start moving toward it at this point. And pretty much every other sports league does this. It's not like we're talking about some crazy thing where it's like, no other teams have, or no other leagues have salary caps. The NBA has a hard cap, has made things harder in recent years because they have a true hard cap now, like the NFL does. And also all these leagues allow for ways like you look at the New Orleans Saints every year in the NFL, and they have like negative 80 million in the cap because they keep punting it down the road. But at some point, they're gonna have to pay the bill. Then they're gonna have to be like, all right, we're punting on a season because we are gonna finally get back in order with our salary cap. I think it makes sense. I hope it'd be cool if there's another solution to it to fix the sport. But I do think it's a credit to the Dodgers that they do things so excellently.
Yeah, 100%. But I think like it gets lost in translation. The real issue, the thing is, the Dodgers are playing with a stacked deck. They're playing with a huge advantage. No one I'm not saying that the Dodgers bought their championship and didn't have to do anything right to get it. And they're probably going to win another one, right? They're probably going to win a lot more until this gets fixed. They're going to have a huge advantage every year. And that comes from their TV deal being worth 5 times what St. Louis's is worth. You know, like, that is an inherent advantage to being a team in Los Angeles. That just happens. It's not ticket sales. It's the fact that you get to make more money for broadcasting your games on TV. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But it gets lost in translation, and Dodgers fans say, oh yeah, money doesn't only buy championships. No, but it gives you a huge advantage. It doesn't mean you're going to win it every year, but it does mean you're playing with a stacked deck. It does mean the margins for error are way bigger, way more generous. Like you said, the Cardinals, remember how hamstrung they felt under the Dexter Fowler deal, which really wasn't that big a deal. I think they were dramatic about it. But
for sure,
the Cardinals go out. If they make a mistake, right? Like, if the Cardinals had signed Conforto to the deal the Dodgers signed him to, they'd be like, "Oh, we can't be spending right now. Like, that's a really big deal to us, and it stinks." Well, and if the Cardinals had gone out and signed Glasnow for that kind of deal, and he got hurt, which he's already been hurt in LA, that's a problem. They can't just outspend their problems. Like the Dodgers, they do sign busts, but then they just outspend those busts.
Yeah, and it's what scared them off from Max Scherzer, is they were like, well, we're not going to sign this guy an arm into the future and have him go bust on us. But they've admitted that was like, they should have done it. But then, like, I think that's why they're like kind of glad the Giancarlo Stanton thing didn't work out, because it's like they'd be paying this guy all this money right now to not be what he needs to be. And So anyways, it's a mixture of a lot of things where, yes, the Cardinals and other organizations need to adapt and be willing to spend more when they're ready to contend. But I just also think, to your point, the Dodgers just have so much of a stacked deck right now that at least take a couple cards out of it. As the Dodgers will always have an advantage, and that's okay. It's okay to have an advantage. It's part of the sport. It's part of being on the West Coast. So you can't control that. LA is an awesome place to live. You're gonna turn more revenues. It's great. But like New York's proved, you can squander it. Like the Yankees haven't won a World Series. Like what is it? Like 15 years now.
Yeah, the Yankees do a lot of dumb things.
The Mets, like they throw money at things and don't work out. It's not just about money, but it's like you have to protect the sport from a team that at this point has all the money in the world basically, but then does all the little things right too. So there really isn't a way to get an advantage over them at this point. So
yeah, you only beat the Dodgers when you get lucky right now. Like that's how it works, right? I was gonna say one more thing. I'm trying to remember the point I was going to make, but it's just so frustrating. It'd be so nice to be able to like outspend your issues. Oh, the last thing, it's Dodgers fans that say stuff like this, but other people jump in too, and they get on people for not extending their young talent. But when a big spender like the Dodgers or the Yankees exists, why would anybody sign an extension? Why would a Paul Skeens sign an extension with Pittsburgh right now? Yeah. Like, and I've interacted with a number of people that have said, well, it's their fault for not calling him. It's their fault. Like, you don't think the Pirates have discussed an extension with Paul Skeens? You don't think they've tried, right? If Paul Skeens was a Cardinal, the Cardinals would obviously be trying to extend him, but he wouldn't do it. It'd be stupid to take that kind of deal because if you want to extend somebody, you have to totally overpay. The fact that the Cubs couldn't get an extension worked out with Kyle Tucker, I think that shows you all you need to know. Like, it was a new situation. It was a trade. He's in a contract year. The value's where it's going to be. And they still couldn't get it done because when something like that, some big spending boogeyman exists outside of where you currently are, you go to free agency and you see what they've got for you because you're going to make more money, especially a player like Skeens or Tucker or somebody else who can afford to bet on themselves because they are great.
Yeah. So anyways, World Series happening. Go Blue Jays, go Toronto, go I guess I'm anti-America this week, but
I do hate to be rooting for Canada, but I gotta be.
But this time you gotta go against the evil empire.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. But
if I think also if Dodgers fans could just admit they were the evil empire, like Yankees fans for a long time are like, yeah, we pay way more than everybody else, and that's what we do. Yep. Can they just say that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's more annoying: Dodger fans acting like they like that they're not a part, like the Dodgers aren't part of the problem, or Yankees fans being like, you know what, we could trade Jason Dominguez, Miguel, Andy Harvey, who's not there anymore, and Lucas, or I don't know, some random pitching prospect for Paul Skeens, and we could trade for Terry Skubal, and we could do all these things. Like, no, you're not. Okay.
Yeah, that's infuriating too.
Hey, stop it. I hate these trade proposals. Stop it.
They're terrible.
Anyways, and they're gonna get Brendan Donovan for I don't know, some random player because apparently the Cardinals would want to do that, but whatever. Anyways, we appreciate the support as always. Like and subscribe, helps channel out a ton. We'll be back on Sunday. We've got a guest coming on, so excited about that. And hopefully by Sunday we'll have some news to announce as well. Andrew teased a little bit in the chat already, so it should be fun. Appreciate the support as always. Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Blue Jays.